Hello, everyone. It's Demond here again. I received a question in the comments a few weeks ago pertaining to MPC submixes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out a moment and explain what submixes are, how they work, when to use them, and one of my preferred techniques behind using them. So let's take a look. Okay, for starters, we're going to observe the pattern. A simple drum and snare pattern with a few hi-hats. So, as far as submixes are concerned, why would we want to apply a submix to this particular arrangement? Well, the reason being is, let's just say hypothetically, if I want to apply an insert to a few elements of this particular arrangement and not all of them, what we would do in this particular instance is we would go to our menu, that's number one, and we would go to our pad mixer. Now, notice how all of our pads here are routed to the program. This second insert, I guess you would say, for options is set to program. Those are your outputs. So right now, let's just say our kick, snare, hi-hat, and secondary hi-hat here, these bottom four pads are all routed to the program as the output, as with anything else. Well, this time around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to route the output of each individual pad, these pads at the bottom, to submix number one. So the kick has been routed. Now I'm going to switch over to the snare. Submix 1, hi-hat, also submix number 1, and then there's the secondary hi-hat here, also submix number 1. Okay, so now that, excuse me, now that all of our pads have been routed, not all, but now that our select pads have been routed to submix number 1, what we'll do is we'll tap the icon here in the upper left-hand corner, and we'll switch over from pad mix to channel mix. Okay, and again, if my hand was in the way, I switch from pad mix to channel mix. Okay, now, right now, the channel mixer is by default set to programs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this over to submixes, to which there are 8. 8 total submixes. The submix to which we were engaged was submix number 1. Or I'm sorry, the pads, the select pads to the select pads that we routed in the previous pad mixer page. I'm sorry, if I'm confusing. Were all routed to submix number 1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take submix number 1, and we are going to apply an insert. This insert will be applicable to all of the pads that were routed to submix number 1. Okay, so let's start the pattern again. And this time around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a little bit of cutoff here. And here we are. So as you can hear, so as you can hear, the only pads that are being impacted are the pads that were routed to submix number 1. The same thing applies to any other insert that you would like to use. Modulation inserts, let's just say flange. Okay, and we can alter the rate. It's kind of neat. All right, and there you have it. I just deleted the flange. But either which way, that's how submixes work. So let's address a couple of questions here. Number one, can I automate submixes? To my knowledge, no, you cannot, which is a very awkward limitation that hopefully Akai will address in later iterations of the MPC software. Question number 2, why not just use sends and returns? I mean, after all, aren't they the same thing? Well, the answer to the question is they are similar. they are synonymous, but they are very much so different from one another. Sends and returns only impact a portion or a component of the signal. So, just as I applied a full fledged filter cutoff to the paths associated with this program, I would not be able to do that with sends and returns because, again, sends and returns only impact a component of the signal. So you won't get the full effect. And by the way, I did do a sends and returns video some time ago, which was very, very similar to the demonstration I'm giving right now. But ultimately, at the end of the day, anything can be routed to a submix. Let's go back to our pad mixer. I'm sorry, let's go back to our channel mixer. Let's go to channel mix. Okay, and say, for example, if I were to put this in program mode, well, right now I'm being routed to outputs 1 and 2. Well, if I wanted to, I could also route the program to submix 1 or submix 2 or submix 3 and so on and so on. I just find it, I just found it a little bit more practical to route submixes. I'm sorry, I just find it a little bit more practical to route individual paths to submixes because it gives you a little bit more flexibility as it relates to your program, your mix. Definitely a plus if you're trying to cut low frequencies with with claps, snares, and hi-hats. So that way you'll create space for your kick drums and your bass. So that is the submix demonstration. I hope that was helpful to you guys. Again, I went through that kind of quickly, but if you guys have any questions about this, of course, leave them in the comments. All right, perfect. Thank you guys. Okay, everyone. And so that was my demonstration on submixes. Again, if you guys have any questions pertaining to anything MPC related, please leave the questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to create a video to explain. Until then, I'll see you guys around. Thank you.